All right, let's do it. What is going on, everybody? Welcome in and welcome back to another episode of the Ryan's Ramble podcast. My name is Ryan Bonnell. I'm your host throughout this series. If you're unfamiliar with exactly who I am, I'm one of the associate editors over at Frogs of War on the Frogs of War Network. This is your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs here on the Frogs of War Network. This is essentially, in just basic explanation, this is a gambling podcast. We're going to talk college football picks. College basketball just started. Not going to get there yet. I'm still figuring out exactly how I want to work out doing this weekly series with college football and getting college basketball picks in the mix as well, because it gets kind of complicated being that, football's on Saturday every week. It's pretty, scheduled, whereas basketball, there's games every day. TCU may play on a Monday. TCU may play on a Sunday. It's all over the place, so I may end up just doing only days where TCU plays, giving my picks, kind of what I did last year where I gave like my top three other than the TCU game. But regardless, for now, we're here for college football. Before we really get into things, just want to give, as always, a shout out to Frogs of War for allowing me to have this platform. I have had nothing but a blast doing this podcast so far, and huge thank you to everybody that tunes in. I love seeing comments and everything like that, seeing what you guys are taking. If anybody tailed my picks, I've had a few of my classmates and stuff come up to me tailing my picks, and it just makes my day every time because, I know it's a little bit degenerate all about, gambling, but it's what we're here for. We're here to have a good time. We're here to help each other out and have some fun along the way. But anyway, we're going to get into our picks. Before we do that, got a disclaimer. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. I have already said it multiple times. This is sports betting. It's gambling. But it is not legal in the state of Texas. Frogs of War is not encouraging sports gambling. We are not a proponent of sports gambling in any way. What you do in your free time, that's all on you. All right. So I know there's actually been some legal forms coming into Texas recently, like PointsBet is something I've not PointsBet. What was it? Prize Picks or something like that. There's like new legal forms of gambling that are coming into Texas, but I don't know. That's a conversation for a different day. I could go on and on about how DraftKings and FanDuel should be legal in Texas, but for some reason they're not. I don't know why. It's the future. One day, give it like 2-3 years, it'll be legal everywhere. It is what it is. So for now, it's entertainment purposes only. And I gotta say, I usually like to talk about TCU a little bit before we really get into things. It's TCU podcast. We gotta talk about the Frogs a little bit. God bless Chandler Morris. Oh my God, that kid's a baller, bro. 531 total yards. It's a great day. It's always a great day to be a Horned Frog, but this week in particular is just a great time to be a Horned Frog. Soccer team's killing it. They're have their tournament appearance tonight. Actually, I'll be working the game, so if you guys follow along on the Twitter, I'll be live tweeting the soccer game. But other than that, we had the Baylor win, which this was supposed to be the year. We can talk about the downs and everything all we want, but we beat Baylor. That in of itself is like a separate season phenomenon, if that makes any sense. It's like part of me is okay with the season now just because we beat Baylor. It makes everything so much better. And now we actually have contention for a bowl game, but hell of a way to go out too, because I'm a senior. So for me, that was my last Baylor TCU game and my last game as a student with all the students there. Even though we do have the Kansas home game remaining, I'm going to be there, but I know everybody else has been talking about they're going to be still at home for Thanksgiving and whatnot. So going to be a small student section for the final home game of the year, which kind of bums me out, but we got to go out with the bang with the Baylor win. So no complaints there. I can't complain at all. So again, going to start this out like I always do with a segment I like to call What We Learned Last Week. This is basically where I just go through some of the big moments, some of my revelations from last week in college football, and what we can use to apply to our future picks. And maybe this has been the difference now that I think about it. Maybe this has really, and I know a lot of it's just benign, like a lot of it I'm just kind of talking out of my ass for some of it. And some of it really is stuff that I'm going to use. Like, for example, Florida. One thing I learned today is never to bet on Florida again. So I'm going to use that and never bet on Florida again. Maybe this is what I was missing from last year because I didn't have this little, what we learned segment last year. But maybe this is the reason we've been winning. How much have we been winning exactly? 8 weeks in a row. We're going to get to that in a bit. I can brag on myself all day, but I can't right now. So first up, Purdue is a wagon against top 5 teams. That is the first thing we learned this week. Boilermakers, more like spoiler makers. They are 3-0 against AP top 5 teams under their current head coach, and they have 16 wins versus AP top 5 schools as an unranked team. I just dropped a can opener. Sorry if you guys heard that, but that's insane. 16 wins as an unranked team. That's not even counting their wins as a ranked team as well over the top 5, but that is the most of any school by far in the country. Purdue just loves to play spoiler for some reason. They've already done it twice now with Iowa and Michigan State. Who knows what's next? Another thing we learned as well, moving over to the Big 12, is Oklahoma State. Their defense is legit. This is a new era. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast from time to time because I've taken a few Oklahoma State unders that I really, really liked, such as last week, the under with West Virginia. That one cashed. But it's a new era of Cowboys football. They're a very defensive minded team this year. They've been playing at a slower pace than we've seen in, the stereotypical Big 12 shootout years. Their defense is currently ranked number 3 in total defense, behind only Georgia and Wisconsin. That's absurd. They're one of only 9 teams to give up less than 300 yards per game on average. If Chandler Morris can slice through this defense, though, this weekend like he did against the Bears, give this man the Heisman Trophy. I don't even care if he's only played 2 games. Give it to him, or at least put him in the conversation like they prematurely did with Caleb Williams. That's another conversation for another day. I don't even want to get into it. But now this defense is legit. It has me worried for this weekend, but not too worried. We'll talk about TCU in a bit as well. It's going to be tough to get through. I've never seen Oklahoma State play like a defensive-minded football first, it seems like, in my whole life. So taking a little bit to get used to. They held Baylor to 14 points, and most recently it was a 24-3 win, against West Virginia. So pretty dominant. Held the Mountaineers to 3 points, who isn't, some explosive offense, but they can score at least 20 to 30 a game regularly. So pretty good performance from them. Not exactly what you want to see the week before playing us, TCU, but it is what it is. I think the Frogs will do just fine. We'll figure it out just like we did against Baylor. I'm realizing now I didn't get water before I started recording, but who needs water when you have beer, honestly? Same thing. Anyway, next up, we got UNC is just as reliable as a politician's promise. You never know what you're going to get with these guys. They have just been up and down, back and forth. Overall, disappointing, but they pulled out of their ass a big win over Wake Forest, handed them their first loss. It was a 58-55 shootout, which is absurd. But then they followed up with a Thursday night game yesterday, because I'm recording this on Friday. They followed up with a Thursday night game, lost 30-23 against Pitt, who's again a good team. But UNC is they were projected 10+ wins this year. They were supposed to be in the ACC championship game against Clemson. Neither one of those worked out. The ACC has just been an enigma in of itself this year, but UNC especially. They have all these expectations. Open the year with a loss to Virginia Tech, drop a game to Georgia Tech of all teams, who's 3-6, and then they also lost to, who else was it? Florida State. They lost to Florida State, who's not that good. After being projected 10 wins in a New Year's Six Bowl, that's bad. I don't want to trash talk Mac Brown. Love Mac Brown as a coach, except for when he was at Texas. But that's the bias in me. But Sam Howell, looking at their quarterback, Sam Howell is still decent. He's still pretty good. But I mean, at the beginning of the year, he was a Heisman favorite, and now he's kind of fell off the map in terms of the media world. I haven't really heard anybody talk about him other than that Wake Forest game, just because for some reason the Demon Deacons struggled to tackle his big ass body. That was pretty wild to see. He had a great game in that one, but overall a disappointing year. So they're just hard to pin. That's another team I'm probably going to stay away from for the rest of the year. I almost took against them with Pitt, but you just never know with them. You really never know. All right. Next up, we talked about him last week, but I'm going to talk about him again. The College Football Playoff Committee seems like they don't understand how football works. So they have Oregon in the most recent rankings. They have Oregon at number 3, which makes sense. Michigan State lost, move everybody up 1. They have Oregon at number 3. and Ohio State at number 4. So what is their reasoning exactly for having Oregon at number 3? Well, it's, pretty simple. It's because they beat Ohio State head to head. Therefore, they have the head to head advantage. They're going to be ranked ahead of them. But then you go down literally 2 rankings, just 2 rankings. And then at number 6, you have one loss Michigan. And at number 7, you have one loss Michigan State. Now, I know Michigan State lost to an unranked team, but how does that make any sense? Right? Because their whole logic with Oregon ahead of Ohio State is they won head to head. But literally 2 weeks ago, Michigan State beat Michigan. And now the Wolverines are getting the benefit of the doubt. I make that make sense. It just doesn't. It seems like the committees forgot how football works. They're contradicting their own arguments all the time. And another one too, they still have Oklahoma at 8, and it looks like they're going to make them prove it. So that one's kind of shocking to me. But overall, just make it make sense, man. These guys, it's almost laughable sometimes how much their biases show, how much their favoritism towards the large alumni networks, the big TV monies, the ratings. I hate it. That's the one thing I hate about college football, but still love it. Gotta love it. I'm hoping eventually it'll fix itself whenever maybe we get a 12 team playoff. I mean, but even then, there's always going to be room to complain. It's never going to be perfect. It's just one of those things. Better than the BCS, I think. All in all, maybe we could have the BCS system with the playoff format. I don't know. Just throwing out ideas. Anyway, moving on. Something else we learned. This one is just one of those kind of talking out of my ass ones. We're not really going to use this to apply for our picks. We're probably never going to be making picks on Maction games just based on when the timing of the podcast is. But Maction is a vibe unlike any other. Tuesday night football is just something different. Tuesday, Wednesday, it's beautiful because you get Monday night football in the NFL, Tuesday, Wednesday, Maction, Thursday night football in the NFL, and then a couple games like the UNC game. Friday, you get a couple big games like tonight's like Boise State, Wyoming, which we're picking. That's going to be a decent game to watch. And then, Saturday is the full slate. Sunday is NFL. Every day of the week is football with Maction. Thanks to Maction. Maction is the reason. Otherwise, there would literally be nothing on Tuesday, Wednesday. There's something just different about watching these games on Tuesday nights. The over-unders, from a betting perspective, the over-unders are absolutely insane. I love it. They're so hard to predict, though. Watching a Maction game is basically like watching a JV high school football scrimmage because it's just a lot of wild shit happens, and I'm not even sure that it's on purpose half the time they do it. They have a bunch of trick plays, fake punts. It's exciting football, but it's also kind of garbage TV at the same time, which is, I don't know, it's a poetic pairing in a sense. I kind of like it. So, but in terms of betting, if you're gonna have a play on a Maction game, you might as well take the over. They score ridiculous amounts of points. If you don't take the over, chances are you're probably gonna have a bad time watching the game. And plus, it's more fun to root for points anyway, like always. And last but not least, on what we learned, I mentioned this a little bit, but stay away from Florida. I am done touching the spread. They covered the spread against Bama, right? And everybody was like, "Oh, Florida might be good." Oh shit, they almost they almost beat Bama. They covered a huge spread. Ever since then, everything's gone wrong. They lost to Kentucky. That's excusable. They're a good team on the road, but then they had high expectations to compete against Georgia for some reason. I don't understand that. But if you remember from a few podcasts back, I decided to pass on that game because all the experts were taking Florida spread for some reason. They were only 14-point underdogs, even though like Kentucky were 21-point underdogs, Arkansas were 18-point underdogs. For some reason, they were a smaller underdog. I didn't really understand that. And now this week, they just got blown out 40-17 against South Carolina. Yikes. My main takeaway from that game was Dan Mullen is probably on the hot seat right now. He's been there for a while. He's had some success. I personally will give him the benefit of the doubt because they did just lose Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts, some big playmakers, and it may take a year of growing pains to get back to where they were. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but Florida is one of those teams. They have such high expectations competing in the best conference of football. So maybe Dan Mullen's on his way out. I don't know. That's another reason to avoid Florida at all costs. They're kind of a dart throw like UNC. You really never know what you're going to get. So I'm staying away from Florida. That is all we have for the things we learned, or what we learned last week, excuse me. segment. So let's go and talk a little bit about last week's picks and how we did before we go into this week's card. So last week we finished 7-5 on the week with making 12 picks. It's not perfect, but a winning record is a winning record, and that makes eight consecutive winning weekends of college football bets. I don't know how I'm doing it, to be honest. I think we've only had one official losing week since the season started. And we're just slowly but surely climbing toward we get to 70%, or not 70, 60% win percentage. Right now, that 7-5 week brings my overall record on the year to 70 wins, 53 losses, and 2 pushes, which is good enough for a 56.9% win percentage. I'm going to go ahead and bump that up to a 57. So 57% win percentage, which is, if I can get to 60, I'm sending job applications to damn DraftKings, FanDuel, Bleacher Report. I'm gonna become a professional bettor. It's gonna happen. Might as well just drop out of college at this point. Not really. That was bad joke. Not dropping out of college. We got one more year left. I'm so close. Unless these tier one picks, I don't know. These tier one picks might carry me through. Could pay for my tuition at this point. Could pay for grad school. Hey, that's something. Maybe that's what I need to think about. Now, all in all, though, I'm terrified at any moment. I sound confident. I am super confident, but I am terrified that at any moment I could go 0-10. You can have a complete losing week just as easy as you have, a 7-5 week like last week. It's probably easier actually to go 0-10 than it is 7-5. So eventually it could happen. I'm not going to promise anything. I just be cautious. That's why I'm always on my toes. You got to always stay on your toes when sports betting. I had a few close losses last weekend on that 7-5 card. I really could have gone 8-4, 9-3. It could have been a much different week. But for example, we had Kentucky money line, our only tier one pick that lost, and they ended up losing to Tennessee by 3 points in a shootout, 45-42. That was kind of wild. Another close one is I had Kansas State, their team total over 40.5 points against Kansas. They ended up with 35 points with 7 minutes left, and they got the ball twice, but they just had the backups in. They weren't trying. One touchdown away from hitting that bet. That one was really disappointing. And then the worst one of them all, and this one's kind of on me. I should have bought half a point and gotten the push because I knew this was a possibility. Wake Forest plus 2.5 ended up losing to UNC by 3, which that means our bet lost by 0.5 points. There's absolutely nothing more painful other than maybe like losing a parlay on a last second field goal. There's nothing more painful than losing a spread bet or an over under bet by half a freaking point. It's brutal. It is brutal. It would have been a lot worse if the week had gone a different way, but we did have some winners, so that's all good with me. And our biggest loss of them all, though, this one I gotta call myself out on this one. I was pretty confident Rutgers would cover plus 13.5 against Wisconsin. They ended up losing 52-3. So that one's on me, guys. Yeah, my bet on that. I don't know if I'm going to be taking Rutgers spreads anytime soon, but their over-unders, different story. We'll talk about that in a sec. Now, for this week's picks, I normally like to talk about TCU before I really get into my full card, like TCU spread, the over-under, everything like that. But they are on my board. They're on my card today. So I'm going to go ahead and wait a little bit and then talk to them once I get to that pick. So I will admit, all in all, with this week, I don't love the board as much as I usually do. Going through it first, I only had like 8 or 9 really confident picks before like my second sweep through, looking through like the systems and everything. And I had a few as well, even whenever I was finalizing the card that I ended up leaving out, such as like Ole Miss plus 2.5. That's one that the Ole Miss A&M game, I've gone back and forth on almost an entire 24 hours now at this point. I don't know what to do, so I think the best idea is just to pass on it. But the thing is, the irony of that is if Ole Miss ends up covering, I'm going to be pissed that I didn't do it. But it is what it is. Yeah, better safe than sorry sometimes. So I think we ended up with like 12 picks for this week. So about an average amount for us. Let's go ahead and start with tier 3. If you aren't familiar with the tier system, tier 3 is my lowest confidence picks. Of course, I'm still confident in them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be picking. But compared to tier 2 and tier 1, these are the plays that I would put the smallest amount of units on, maybe half a unit, maybe a full unit. Depends on how you're feeling on some of these. But these are my least confident ones. So first up is Purdue at Ohio State. I'm going to be taking the over of 63. Now, the spread in this one is actually Buckeyes minus 21, which is crazy to think about it, considering Ohio State's number 4 team, Purdue's 21-point underdogs. Last week, they played the number 3 team, and they were only 3-point underdogs. Again, make it make sense. That makes me think Ohio State's probably going to blow them out. I'm too scared to take Purdue plus 21, even though that seems like the obvious pick. I know the public is all over it. Like 78% of the public is taking Purdue to cover. But that's why I'm going to go with the over-under here. Lots of offense, I think, is going to happen in this game, mostly from the Ohio State side of things. Buckeyes are averaging 46.2 points per game in their last 5 contests. And then Purdue also is coming off a pretty big offensive week. Like they just dropped 40 against Michigan State, who isn't the best defense in the world, but they're not too bad. I mean, 40 points against a top 5 team is 40 points against a top 5 team. So they had a pretty good offensive week last week. And in terms of defense, both of these defense rank below 110th out of 130 in the FBS in terms of red zone efficiency. So if either team gets an opportunity, gets the ball in field goal range and whatnot, expect points to be on the board, which that's always a good sign for when taking the over. And to go along with that too, the passing defense and passing offense is going to be a beautiful combination. So these are the 100th and 66th ranked pass defenses, respectively, going up against the 26th and 34th ranked passing offenses, respectively. So not like a crazy difference, but the offenses should have the advantage on literally every possession. So give me the over in that one, Purdue, Ohio State. Over 63, by the way. Sorry, I didn't clarify. And then next up on tier 3, I'm taking South Carolina minus 120 money line. Not the spread, just the money line at Mizzou. The Gamecocks are now bowl game bound. It's now or never for the Gamecocks if they want to make a bowl game. They're 5-4, 1 win left. After this, they have Auburn and Clemson, which I'm sorry, I really don't see them winning either one of those games. This was a team they've exceeded expectations. They were projected 3.5 wins was their over under for season win total. Projected 3 to 4 wins. That's not very good. They already have 5 through 9. Big upset, like we've talked about last week against Florida. That 40-17 game was crazy, but the fact that 78% of the public are also taking the Gamecocks in this game is the reason it's in tier 3. But I think you really got to ride the wave. I mean, they just beat Florida by 23 points, and they were double-digit underdogs. Like, you got to ride that wave. They want to make a bowl game. They're going to come and play. And Mizzou also has just given me nothing. Like, they have nothing to show for, really. Mizzou hasn't been impressive at all. So I'm riding the wave. Give me the Gamecocks. Next up, we're taking Boston College +2 at Georgia Tech. So this one is a little tough for me. I'm going against my brother's alma mater in Georgia Tech, but Boston College, I've kind of been favoring them a lot this year. For some reason, I really like their matchups. I really like their spreads a lot of times, and we've profited off them. So the Yellow Jackets, though, they're done for. I think they're 3-6. They got 2 huge games after this. They got Notre Dame and Georgia, their big rival. Yikes. They're 3-6. If they want to make a bowl game, they have to win out. It's literally impossible at this point. Boston College, on the other hand, they only need one more win. One more win and they're in. They started out 4-4 or 4-0, I mean, and then lost 4 straight to 4-4. But finally, Boston College bounced back last week with I think it was a 17-7 or 17-3 win over Virginia Tech. So they're now 5-4, 1 win away from a bowl game. I think they're going to do it on the road. I think it might be time for Jeff Collins to go at Georgia Tech. They've been pretty patient with him. He has established a great culture there, brought in a couple decent recruits, but as you can see, I mean, 3-6, there's really not much to show for it. Maybe time to move on. So, and also another reason, this doesn't always mean everything, but last year Boston College dominated this matchup 48-27. So another reason to like the Eagles in this. Now, So I had beer sip time. Last up on my tier 3 card, I'm going with TCU plus 11.5 at Oklahoma State. Now, I have 3 words, or actually, no, 6 words, 2 sets of 3 words. I didn't know which one to go with, so we're just going to go with both of them. So, first one, Chandler effing Morris. Enough said. Second one, I'm going to this side now. Second one, too many points. 11.5 points? Are you kidding me? I mean, I get it. Oklahoma State's a top 10 team, but I mean, this seems like free money, frunny, if you will. This is way too many points. Do I think TCU is going to win this game? No. I think they have a shot. They'll keep it close. They'll compete. And if Chandler Morris plays like he did last week, hell, they actually might. But I think it's going to be an Oklahoma State win most likely. It's just I do think TCU can keep things interesting, at least within a touchdown. 11.5 points. That's a lot. I mean, even if TCU does lose by 2 possessions, it's probably going to be 10 points, 11 points, not more than that. So I'm huge on the Frogs. But the only reason I have them in tier 3 is, again, as always, I try to refrain from betting on my home teams because there is the bias, even if I like to think there's not. There is. Oklahoma State, though, their offense has been slow paced. We talked about that at the beginning. Got to give TCU some chances to stay in it, especially if their offense puts up, or especially if their offense can finish. Because last week there was 5 field goal attempts against Baylor. One was blocked, one missed there at the end of the game. So if we could just finish those drives, imagine we could have had like 50 points against Baylor last week. So the offense needs to finish. That's going to help us stay in the game. This line opened at plus 13.5 for TCU, but since then it has dropped all the way to 11.5, which also indicates that sharps are siding with TCU. So the bets are pretty even in terms of the public. It's at 49% to 51 in favor of Oklahoma State, but TCU does have a 5% money differential. So some of the bigger bets are favoring the Horned Frogs. So that's another reason, sharp indicators to take TCU. So I'm going with the Horned Frogs plus 11.5. That's a lot of points. All right, next up we got tier 2. Our first one on the tier 2 card is actually a Friday night game. It's probably happening like an hour after this gets published. I had a lot going on heading to Austin this weekend. It's a busy time. So I had to record this podcast a little bit late. So hopefully it is up fully before this pick. But you do know I'm not cheating. If Wyoming covers, I'm not cheating or anything. Okay, I promise. I recorded this before the game. But anyway, Wyoming plus 14 is my pick tonight at Boise State. Wyoming isn't as crappy, isn't as cruddy as they normally are. I really like to compare them to the Boston College of the Mountain West. The same record too. They started 4-0, and they went 4-4, and now they won last week. I think this line of 14-point favorites for the Broncos, I think it's a bit of an overcorrection on the market after Boise State had a really big 26-point upset win against Fresno State. They were 5-point underdogs in that one, so pretty impressive. I don't think they can repeat that performance. And I don't like betting on Wyoming of all teams. Like, I really don't. But 14 points is a lot of points, and Wyoming's been playing a few close games all year. So I really like it. Give me the oh my God, why am I forgetting the mascot? Wyoming, they're the Cowboys, right? Yeah, Wyoming Cowboys. They have to be the Cowboys. Okay, yeah, I'm tripping. All right, next up on tier 2, I'm taking Marshall minus 4.5 versus UAB. I actually might end up buying half a point to -4. If you're unfamiliar with what that means, it's essentially, so the spread is -4.5 in favor of Marshall. But if you were to buy half a point, it would change the spread to -4, but you would have to have a little bit juicier of odds, such as -120 or -125 instead of -110, the typical house juice. But so stay tuned. Check the written version. I'm going to make my final decision if I want to buy half a point there. But either way, I think Marshall's going to win this game. 4 points is a pretty sweet spot number for me. They had a slow start, but they figured things out recently. They won their last 4 games by an average margin of 17.6 points, and those are against the same teams that UAB has been playing against. And really, there's not much to it on this one. I don't have much analytical, commentary to add to it. I think Marshall is just straight up the better team in this situation, and they're at home. It has conference champion implications. They're going to come to play. So give me the Thundering Herd. Next up, I got Baylor. I don't like betting on Baylor, but I'm doing it. Baylor plus 5.5 at home versus Oklahoma. And I honestly think Baylor has a chance at winning this game outright and handing the Sooners their first loss of the season. And before I get into the game itself, I can't believe the committee only dropped Baylor from number 12 to number 13 after the TCU loss. That's bullshit. Excuse my language, but it's bullshit. There's no reason. You know why they did that? Because number 8 versus number 13 is a whole lot better for TV than number 8 versus number 21, where Baylor should have gone, or something along those lines. But it's annoying. Just another one of those annoying aspects. But c'est la vie. It is what it is. We move on. This game could actually be the Big 12 championship, oddly enough, depending on how things go with Iowa State. Maybe TCU upsets Oklahoma State. Who knows? Could shake things up, especially if Baylor wins this game. That'll make things really interesting. So Baylor's going to come to play for this, especially in front of a home crowd. I think Bohannon had probably his worst game all season, quarterback, against TCU. He's probably going to bounce back against not the best defense in the conference, I will say. The difference maker is really going to be whether or not Caleb Williams balls out or not. I want to see first half Caleb Williams against Kansas. Kansas first half Caleb Williams is what I want to see the entire Baylor game. And then we'll have a cover for sure. But regardless, I think this is going to be a close game, probably a 3-4 point game, even if the Sooners do win it. So I'm taking Baylor plus 5.5. Now, to round out my tier 2 picks, I'm going not Rutgers spread. I just kind of shit talked myself for taking them last week, but I'm going Rutgers at Indiana over 43.5 points. Now, this is not a lot of points for an over-under. Rutgers have been allowing 6.11 or 6.11 yards per play this year on defense, and I think this will give an opportunity for Indiana to potentially score points for the first time of the year. I mean, really, to put up some points, have a decent offense. I'm following the money here on this one as well. This is kind of a money pick, sharp indicator pick. So the over has 60% of the public bets, yet 95% of the money on this game is siding with the over. So that's a big indicator that the big bettors, the heavy hitters, are taking the over in this one. So I'm going to follow them. I'm going to follow them here. I like the over a lot. Rutgers offense too. So one thing that I thought about while I was looking at this line, kind of thinking of what I wanted to do, was, Rutgers just came off a game with Wisconsin where they put up an abysmal 113 yards and scored 3 points. But Wisconsin has the number 1 defense in the country. They've surpassed Georgia, which is crazy, but Wisconsin is currently ranked number 1 for defense. And Rutgers offense playing this week against Indiana after Wisconsin is going to be very similar to a basketball player shooting 3-pointers after lifting weights. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Because how after you lift weights, you don't even realize how strong you're gonna be type thing. You always overshoot it. I feel like that's how easy it will be for Rutgers to move the ball on offense now after going against the godly Wisconsin defense. It's going to be completely different. They're going to be able to, I think they'll be able to put up at least 20 points. Indiana put up 24 to 20, and we hit the over. That's not too much to ask for, is it? I think if Indiana can get the ball in Ty Freifogel's hand as well, everything will be okay. That'll give us 30 points from Indiana alone if they can get Freifogel the ball, but nobody's been able to pass it to him this year. Penix Jr., after his preseason expectations, so he just need to get him the damn ball. But that's it for my tier 2 picks. Just to recap, I had Wyoming plus 14 at Boise State, Marshall minus 4.5 versus UAB, Baylor plus 5.5 versus Oklahoma, and Rutgers at Indiana over 43.5 points. Now for tier 1. Drum roll, please. I got to play some drum roll sounds. Actually, I was in band, so I have a drum. I can just pull out my, I need to start doing that maybe for the show. Add some production value to it. All right, anyway, tier 1, my most confident picks of the weekend. First up, starting with Air Force -2.5 at Colorado State. I am very surprised by this line. All in all, I think Air Force should be bigger favorites in this game. This is likely a small market correction after they had 2 losses in a row, but both of them were against relatively good teams. I mean, Army, that's always going to be a battle when you have 2 service teams playing against each other, Air Force, Army. And then San Diego State, who's one of the only group of 5 teams in the top 25 right now. So both good losses to have. And, Colorado State, 3-6, haven't done much. If you look at they're in the same conference. So if you look at their head-to-head comparisons, Arizona, or not Arizona, I don't know why I said Arizona. Air Force beat Boise State the week before their 2-loss streak, and Colorado State lost to that same team by 9. Also, Air Force beat Wyoming by 10 points, and Colorado State lost to that same team by 14. So I know football doesn't always work like that, but it's a bit of an indicator. I mean, whenever you have multiple head-to-head games to compare on and not just one, but Air Force, I think, is the better team. They would probably be bigger favorites if they were the home team playing at their super high-altitude stadium. But, I mean, I guess I don't know where Colorado State plays exactly, but now that I think about it, I'm sure it's probably high altitude. It's in Colorado. But I don't know. Colorado State, though, they have a decent rush defense. They're ranked 52nd in the country. They're allowing 3.56 yards per carry and 139 rush yards per game. Meanwhile, though, they can be A-OK all they want. Meanwhile, though, Air Force has the number 1 rushing offense in the country, 4.87 yards per rush as a team, which is nuts. 301.7 rushing yards per game, which makes them the only school to surpass 300 yards per game, rushing yards per game, in the country. And on top of that, they have 28 rushing touchdowns in 9 games. So I'm sorry. I just think Air Force is going to run all over them. The Rams, they can try all they want, but this is Air Force's game to have. 3 points is not too much to ask for. So Air Force -2.5 is probably actually my favorite pick of the entire board. But it's just weird to say that a Mountain West game is my favorite bet. I don't know. It's hard to imagine that. This one almost was my favorite, but part of me is nervous. I still got it in tier 1, though. But Michigan -125. Money line, not the spread. We're taking the money line at Penn State. The spread is only -1, and I mean, that's fine too if you want to take it, but I'm just taking the money line in case of some freak incident where they push and I don't make or lose anything. So I want to make the money here. I want the money line. Why the hell, though? Answer me this. Why the hell are Michigan only 1-point favorites? This seems like free money to me. I would have expected them to be much, much, much bigger favorites. So I'm really not even going to put much thought into this. Don't overthink it. The Wolverines, sure, they're slightly overrated at number 6, but they're still a top 10 team. Their only loss is Michigan State in a close game, which is a rivalry game nonetheless, too. We'll see how they really fare whenever they play Ohio State soon, but Michigan, they're the better team. Don't overthink it. Penn State, sure, they've looked better. Have they looked better since Illinois? Yes. But am I ever going to forget that happened? No. They lost to Illinois in 9 overtimes. We can't just let that go excused. We have to remember these things. Michigan's the better team here. Give me the money line. Don't overthink it. Just don't even think about it at all, really. Just take Michigan. That one's pretty self-explanatory for me. That's free money. Now, our last pick on the card is going to be Nevada +3 at San Diego State. The Wolfpack are winning this game outright. You heard it here first. They're going to win this game. I'm taking the 3 points as a safety cushion, but I'm really tempted to go Nevada money line at +130 odds. This is a 9:30 game at 9:30 p.m., so it's a great way to round out the card, finish out the day. There's nothing like watching, some Mountain West football at 1 a.m. whenever you're getting ready for bed and everything, or just in bed already. It's one of the top 5 feelings. Just watching crunch time while you're like half awake, just like trying to keep your eyes open. Love it. Love it. Football at all times of day. The Action Network Pro model has this spread projected at Nevada +0.8 instead of +3. So that gives Nevada bettors a 7% edge to the current line. And I know these kind of systems aren't always correct, but this is a pretty large difference. So I think there's a lot of value to be had here. And also, I just have a feeling that this San Diego State team is not going to finish ranked. And in order for that to happen, they've probably got to lose this game. This also has huge implications as to the Mountain West Championship game. It really could come down to whoever wins this game gets the Mountain West Championship bid. So I think both teams are going to play. Nevada, despite being on the road, they're going to come to shine. In Carson Strong, we trust. I'll close it at that. In Carson Strong, we trust. I think they can beat the Aztecs on the road this weekend. So to round out Tier 1, we have Air Force -2.5 at Colorado State. We have Michigan -125 money line at Penn State. And then we have Nevada +3 at San Diego State. Now, that is going to do it for our card this weekend. If you guys are making the trip out to Stillwater for the TCU game, safe travels. Power to you. I'll be in Austin for an ultimate Frisbee tournament of all things. I'm on the club team here at TCU, so I'll be watching, though, at home. Thankfully, it's a nighttime game, so I'll be able to watch it at a bar, wherever I go, some sort of pub or something. I'm sure there will be UT fans in the area that will be like, why the hell is this kid rooting for TCU here? But I'm going to be rooting for the Frogs no matter where I am. Got to watch the game. So if you're going to the game, good for you. Safe travels, as always. Have a great time. Hopefully the Frogs can come away with a big upset win and get that bowl game. I mean, I think if we win this game, we could get a bowl game. We just got Kansas to go, really. So that's all we got. I will be again back same time, same place on Friday for another episode of Ryan's Ramble. We've had 8 winning weeks. I'm going to close out again, bragging on myself, but 8 winning weeks in a row. We're going for 9 this week, and I really want to get to 10. That would be insane. So if we can keep it going this week, that would be amazing. But fingers crossed, fingers crossed. So, alrighty, though. Thank you, everybody that listened. Leave some comments below what you guys are picking this weekend, your favorite game to watch, your favorite spread, whether or not you're tailing or fading my picks. That's totally up to you. Best of luck this weekend to everybody. And yeah, I'll be here again next week.